I'm going to run through this real quickly, but I think this is a pretty interesting set of analytics. This is something I've been thinking about a bit lately, and I'd like to see us expand our use of pretty significantly. You know, we've started to add some retail clients, and with retail clients, a lot of the traditional site analytics stuff that I've talked about are there. Websites just like everybody else. They have conversion processes, they have functional analysis, there are use cases, but certainly from a retail perspective, it's not the biggest set of questions. Merchandising questions are really more important to them. What offers should I make? How should I pitch my products? How can I highlight products? How can I get people to buy more? And how can I shift the distribution to get people to buy the products I want them to buy? So merchandising analytics is really front and center for retailers. And as I thought about this, I wanted to look for analytic techniques that could extend beyond what I think most of our clients are already doing. And here's my sense of where a lot of our clients are. You know, traditionally right now, a lot of retailers have gotten very good at optimizing the product detail page in terms of the merchandising levers they put on it. What's interesting, though, is that because of the way retail systems work, whatever you put in terms of a merchandising lever, a call out, a price, a rating, review, if that exists at the product detail level, it probably flows up into the product list level as well, because these are database-driven systems. So in most cases, the stuff you put at the product detail level flows right up into the product list level. And nowadays, one of the things that's really typical as you look at retail sites is that there's a ton of merchandising callouts on typical product list pages. So whenever you do a faceted search, whenever you look at a discounts page, whenever you look at a category or aisle page, you're seeing a whole bunch of products put together, and all of those products have a bunch of merchandising levers on them, a bunch of callouts, highlights, suggested discounts, and things like that. What's interesting about this is that it changes the sort of nature of analysis. In other words, if I think about a product detail page, every time I add something, a merchandising lever to this page, I'd expect to see at worst a net zero impact on sales. And in most cases, I'd expect to see some positive. If I add a discount to a page, I sure as heck expect to sell more of this product, right? But even if I add a little thing like only at REI, I expect to see some incremental benefit from that. And at worst, what I don't expect to see is any net reduction. But it's different when you start adding stuff to a product list page. Because on a product list page, you're not just encouraging people to buy that product, you're shifting people from one product to another product. So in effect, you could be, by adding merchandising levers, netting costing yourself revenue. That's very unusual on a product detail page, but very easy to have happen as you add merchandising levers and they flow up into these product list pages. So where I think is an interesting place for us to focus is in helping people understand how do the interactions take place on a product list page from a merchandising perspective. And to me, there's a whole set of potentially really interesting questions around this. Things like, if I add a discount or a price reduction to a product list page, what happens? If I add a bunch of discounts to that page, what happens? I'm sure we've all seen pages, right, where every single product has a discount offer on it. Is it valuable at that point, or do they get lost? And does it matter? Like, does the biggest discount matter, or does it all just get lost in the noise? What's the sort of optimal density of discount offers that I can put on a page? And if I want to shift people to particular types of products, what sort of density of discount should I use? Should I only have that one discount? Should I have 2 or 3? Should I have a discount on everything, but have the largest one be on a particular product? Those are questions that I don't think most of our merchandising clients are really answering very effectively. That whole way to, how can I optimize the merchandising callouts at the product list level to make sure that every page I present not only has the highest overall conversion, but shifts people in the direction of products that I most want. That's a really complicated, interesting set of analysis. And I think this is an area where there's a lot of work to be done. And even very basic questions like, when I present a list of products back to people, should I put the highest price product first? Should I put the lowest price product first? In some industries, like if you think about travel, like airlines, they'll almost always put the lowest price trip leg back. But take hotels. They don't necessarily do that. A lot of times they'll put the closest one back to you, right? Expedia has a really complicated algorithm for deciding which of their many inventory choices they're going to pop in front of you, right? And if you've ever done searches on Expedia, you realize there's no obvious reason for why the hotels they're presenting in front of you are put in front of you. It's their inventory algorithms in terms of what they want to move, their profit on those things, and what you think they'll click on all goes into them making a decision about the search order they're going to give you by default. Now you can fix that search order. You can search by area, you can sort it, but the default sort back from them is highly optimized for their business purposes. And that's something that a lot of clients, I think, in the retail space really aren't doing. Even a lot of pretty sophisticated clients who've done a lot of interesting work optimizing merchandising levers and callouts at the product detail level, I don't think have done really interesting work at the product list level. Things like customer ratings. Everybody now puts ratings on products, but do people really understand the impact of putting a highly rated product next to a low rated product? And can you reduce that impact by shifting their order in the list? If you move if you have a 4-star product and a 3-star product, is it more impactful if they're right next to each other? Or if you move the 3-star product a few spaces away, does it diminish that? That seems like a really interesting question and a way that you might really be able to optimize the overall distribution of products on a page that I don't think people are doing right now. So really the idea here is to take all of these merchandising callouts and create a system by which you can start to think about how you're going to optimize these pages. So I'm going to flip through these types of things. And one point I want to make about this from an analytic perspective is that particularly once you realize if you're going to take position into account, you get a combinatorial explosion. A typical page might have they might have 5 or 7 different types of call-outs. They might have 30 different products. That in and of itself isn't so bad. But once you start saying, but I want to understand the difference in putting this in position 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way through position 30, you have a tremendous explosion in the number of combinations. That's something that as an analyst we have to fight. We have to think about how to do that. So I think in a lot of ways, to do this kind of analytics, what you're focused on is finding rules that allow you to say to the client, hey, always put the X highest priced product in this position, and then drive toward that. It's probably not going to be optimal in every situation, but by finding a good set of rules, hopefully you can significantly tune their pages over what they have right now. Some of the types of things that I think it's worthwhile to look at, price by position, average levers per product. So just the density. I mean, if I put 3 or 4 different callouts, does it start to lose effectiveness? Where is that diminishing return point in terms of putting merchandising levers? The maximum discount that I'm offering, the average discount, the total levers on a page. Just when does the page itself get too busy, and what's the best offer? So I think those are some simplifications of all of these things that I think it's really interesting to look at. And then from a merchandising perspective, some of the types of stuff that I think we could focus in on are the density variables. How much and how dense are the callouts on a page? Spread variables. These are things like highest price versus lowest price. And incrementality. One thing merchandisers have always kind of understood, like if you think about the way car manufacturers talk, one thing they want to do is have a car for every kind of buyer. So if you're a low-end buyer, they want to have a car for you. If you're a family buyer, they want to have a car for you. If you're a sports car guy, they want to have a buyer for you, right? There's incrementality. And if you think about this also from like an HP perspective, when they present a list of products back to you, they want to make sure that they're filling every possible price point where you might want to buy a product, so that they can capture every kind of buyer. So incrementality is really interesting to look at from a retail perspective. Gap variables. What's the gap between the highest priced product and the lowest priced product? Can you pull up people into more expensive products by delivering really expensive products in the list? Maybe people aren't going to buy them, but it makes them more likely to buy the next most expensive product. Now, this is a traditional real estate kind of thing, right? Where they show you a really expensive home they know you can't afford. There's reasons for that, right? So I think there are similar kinds of things that people could look at, and one way to capture that in a variable is by looking at the gap between the highest priced product and the next highest priced product, the gap between the highest and the lowest priced product, and doing your analysis on that. So instead of looking at the gaps between all 30 products on a page, you just create 2 variables, highest to next and highest to lowest, and that makes the analysis quite a bit simpler. The number of distincts, so how many distinct, like one thing I think is pretty interesting is you've got all these merchandising callouts, but my intuition is that if a merchandising callout is distinct, if it's only used once on the page, that's more powerful than if it's used repeatedly. So looking for places where they only use something once. Anchor position. There's probably a few places on the page that are especially important, like the first product listed. So sometimes it seems to me we could do the analysis just based on anchor position. Like just look at what's the highest rated, where do I want to put the highest rated product, where do I want to put the most expensive product? That's anchor position analysis. And then mix variables. What's the right mix of things on a page that's going to optimize it? So I think I've talked about these. I'm going to skip through it in the interest of time. What's the dependent variable? So when you do this type of analysis, I think there's a couple things you want to look at. Keep in mind that unlike the product detail page, where when you add a merchandising call out to it, chances are all you're going to look at is how many did I increase the cart rate and the purchase rate for that product. When you add a merchandising call out at the product list level, okay, look at did I add the carts and checkout for that product? But keep in mind at that point you may have decreased the carts and checkout for every other product on the page. So what you want to look at is not just the product specific stuff, but the product set, the total number of carts, the total number of checkouts, the total average value. But I also think you want to look at, did you shift the distribution? And knowing how you're likely to shift the distribution is really important, because keep in mind from a merchandising perspective, a lot of times they're not looking to increase total conversion or total order value. They're looking to move the right kind of inventory. So if I have a bunch of this PC and it's stacked up in my warehouse, it may not matter that it's not the highest priced product. It's the one I got to get rid of, right? So nothing in the web analytics data is going to suggest that. So it's really important from a merchandising perspective to know when I add special callouts or when I add discounts or when I move this up to position 1, this is how I'm going to shift the click and order distribution. I'm going to make this, instead of being 3% of the product's purchase, I'm going to make it 7% of the product's purchase. That's what's important for a merchandiser to understand. So understanding how you're going to shift the click distribution on a page may be even more important to a merchandiser than understanding how you're going to impact total conversion dollars, because he may want to move something even if it's going to cost him dollars, and there's a lot of times there's good reason for that. So there's a number of different types of dependent variable here. They're going to change maybe depending on the circumstance you're looking at, but I think the important thing to understand is you never just want to look at did I improve the individual product. You always want to look at the click distribution. You always want to look at the total number and how you shifted between products when you do this. So that's the merchandising analytics.